Hello. 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 Thank you. Greetings once again to all of my fellow garden gnomes of the wild wasteland. I'm here today with a very special video in recognition of reaching the milestone of 1,760 subscribers to my YouTube channel. And thank you all very much for making this possible. In celebration, I want to take you all on a brief tour of the mods I've made for various games over the years, with a bit of background on how I got into video game modding in the first place. It takes me about an hour of time to produce each minute of video that I publish, so your support is very much appreciated. I will include links in the description for all of the mods covered in this video and for other videos I have created about these mods. So let us start at the beginning. I was first introduced to modding when I installed Grand Theft Auto San Andreas on my computer back in 2009. While the game looked pretty good on my machine, I remember seeing YouTube videos of the game that looked like they were on another level. So I started scouring the internet to find out how to make the game look its best. At this time, I happened to stumble upon the enbdev.com website, shown here in its 2010 form, where a Russian student named Boris Vorontsov was publishing small graphics modifications which he had started developing as a part of a school project. Boris had posted versions of the mod for a number of games, including GTA San Andreas. While I had no idea how to use the mod to actually make the game look cool, like in Boris's official screenshots, I immediately became fascinated by the possibility of being able to enhance a game's graphics beyond the game's own internal limits. One of the mod's most notable features is the addition of real-time reflections to vehicles, as you can see here. ENB for San Andreas also supports effects like ambient occlusion, bloom, depth of field, enhanced shadows, and more. Now if I could just make it to the damn dry cleaner before they close. Come on, guys. While Boris continued to develop ENB for games like Grand Theft Auto 4, I began to explore how earlier versions of the mod could be used to enhance other games, besides the games for which they were intended. I started off with an old ENB release created for the classic game
Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
This game happens to run on an old version of Valve's Source engine, which was also used for the game Half-Life Source, and so I began developing my very first ENB preset. On a side note,
Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines
is a terrific game in its own right and was gorgeous for its time. I recommend checking it out if you get a chance. Anyway, I began tinkering away and learning how to work with ENB, and eventually I published my first mod, Half-Life Source Enhanced Shaders 2010. I posted this on the moddb.com website, where you can still find it today. While this mod never really drew much attention, it was my first real taste of modding, and I was hooked. For Half-Life Source, ENB enhances the image with effects like ambient occlusion, bloom, depth of field, and color correction. While the effects here are not as refined as those found in more recent versions of ENB, they were fairly impressive for 2010. And while I'd like to think that my skill as an ENB preset author has improved over the years, I feel like this mod still holds up reasonably well today, and with a game like Half-Life Source, you'll be hard-pressed to find alternatives. Moving along, later in 2010 came the release of Fallout New Vegas. Right away, I began to hunt for a version of ENB that would work with the game, eventually landing on ENB for Burnout Paradise. I put together a fairly simple ENB preset for Fallout New Vegas, enhancing the game image with bloom, post-processing effects, and several palette textures, to allow for dynamic color correction based on lighting conditions. This mod is currently available on the Nexus as Enhanced Shaders Classic. It was also around this time that I became acquainted with a few other notable modders on the Nexus. These include MGE, the mastermind behind mods like Warzones, Imaginator, and Electro City, as well as Wayjason, the visionary behind mods like EVE and Impact, and who is also currently working on Frontier, and also a fellow by the name of Gopher, who is responsible for, well, we all know Gopher, right? Anyway, a few years later, in 2013, Boris developed a version of ENB specifically designed for Fallout New Vegas, and I used this to develop a new version of Enhanced Shaders using all the new effects the mod had to offer. This was the first truly complex ENB preset I created, employing not only the usual suite of effects like ambient occlusion and depth of field, but also a comprehensive overhaul of lighting and environmental parameters throughout the day and night cycle. I also made a short trailer video for this mod, which you can see here. And this mod is currently available on the Nexus. In between creating these ENB presets for Fallout New Vegas, I decided to learn how to create new textures for the game, and this led to the release of the Bueno Texture Workshop mod and the performance-friendly Poco Bueno compilation of these textures later that year. These mods include over 575 new high-res textures covering many objects throughout the game. I usually like to combine this mod with NMC's legendary texture pack for Fallout New Vegas, and a few other smaller texture packs to cover almost everything in the game with new high-res goodness. You can watch a short comparison video of Poco Bueno textures against the vanilla textures here. And both the Bueno and Poco Bueno mods are currently available on the Nexus. For my next two mods, I collaborated with the aforementioned WayJason for a little bit of fun. First up, we have
Gnome Wrangler,
a scavenger hunt obstacle course extravaganza to scour the Mojave for 10 unique, carefully crafted, and charismatic gnomes to add to your personal collection. For this mod, I supplied all of the texture work for these little guys, while WayJason handled mesh modifications and special effects. Special effects. You can hunt these guys down like Pokemon today, as this mod is also currently available on the Nexus. Next up is the last mod I worked on for Fallout New Vegas, and that is the Bueno Nuka-Cola machine. This is a high-resolution texture replacer for both the pristine and standard versions of the machine, and it also includes some fancy bells and whistles, like a moving fan, animated glow maps, and an animated TV screen. And as icing on the cake, the machine is also fully destructible, with multiple damage states for the mesh and textures, and a satisfying boom at the end. Again here, I created all of the textures while WayJason handled all the magic. And here we can see the machine on vacation in the DC wasteland. And here a couple are hanging out after dark, up to no good, I'm sure. Now, let's jump back to November 2011 for a bit, for the release of The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I got myself to tinkering again and released the very first ENB mod for Skyrim later that month. Again, this mod originally used a version of ENB designed for a completely different game, but eventually matured into one of the more popular Skyrim ENB mods available on the Nexus. ENB for Skyrim was the first version of the mod to introduce truly next-generation effects to video games. Effects like subsurface scattering, real-time reflections, image-based lighting, and depth of field may be more commonplace in games today, but in 2011 these were scarcely heard of. Jumping forward to 2014, I was compelled to create something new based on the landmark ENB preset by Confidence Man known as Natural Lighting and Atmospherics, or NLA. I feel that NLA is by far the most realistic lighting mod ever created for any video game that I know of, and Skyrim Enhanced Shaders NLA is my own take on this work, introducing a few performance options and other features. Though much less popular than my first ENB preset for Skyrim, this one is by far my favorite, and it is the one I always play with. I created a full set of ENB effect demonstration videos using this preset, which you can see here. And finally, let's now take a look at a couple mods I have published for Bethesda's current open-world behemoth, Fallout 4. The first is a retexture of the iconic Nuka-Cola machine, available in sizes ranging from vanilla to 4K. This texture lends a thick, voluminous aspect to the paint on the machine, suggesting a history of frequent repaints. You can watch a brief video about this mod here. And the second mod is a similar retexture, but this time for the milk vending machine. This texture makes prominent use of the reflective materials introduced with Fallout 4, and features a highly detailed specular map enhanced by none other than Fading Signal of True Storms fame. You can watch a brief video about this mod here. And as you may have guessed, both of these mods are also currently available on the Nexus. Alright, now me and the boys here want to thank you one more time for your support of the channel, and I look forward to bringing you more informative and entertaining videos about modding in the future. Thank you, and good night.